Welcome to the Expert Edge. This is the show where we bring on experts in their fields of health and wellness practice. We hear their stories and we learn what they see working in the field of diabetes reversal and prevention. So I'm happy to introduce today's guest, Leon Contreras. Welcome, Leon.
Thank you so much for having me.
Leon has a master's in clinical exercise physiology, and he's a dietitian in training that is specializing in diabetes care and prevention. With a strong foundation in clinical exercise science and culturally tailored interventions, Leon is dedicated to empowering individuals and families to reverse type 2 diabetes. He uses evidence-based nutrition and physical activity strategies, and he also holds several professional credentials, including the ACE Certified Medical Exercise Specialist, the ISSA Certified Exercise Therapy Specialist, and the ISSA Certified Obesity and Diabetes Management Instructor certification. So his work focuses on metabolic health and reducing health disparities in underserved populations. So I'm really happy you could take some time today to be with us, Leon. But I would love for you to tell us a little bit about how you got started with your interest in this intersection of lifestyle and health before we dive into our topic for the day.
Thank you so much. First of all, I am really honored and grateful being having this opportunity and being here. My journey begins when I came to America in August 2016. I was an apparently healthy individual. I was an athlete, and I was like in my peak performance. But as soon as I came to Ohio and I began to, interact with the food and the culture, all of my health declined severely.
Mhm.
So I began to have low back pain, which I never had it before. My metabolism went really slow. I was feeling more fatigue. So I decided to do medicine. So when I was in my pre-medical training, I realized that at least in America, people deal more with the diseases by treating the symptoms, but not the root cause. And they were using a lot of surgeries and medication as the only measurement to combat all of these diseases. So I was curious to know why was that the case. So then, instead of going to medical school, I decided to do multiple degrees that were able to address the problem. One of them was clinical physiology, and now dietitians. And what I was learning is that there are a lot of factors. Some of them, the food, the mentality, the behavior, the habits, and even the movement of the people that would affect everything from the in and the out of the body. So then I realized that my culture, the Hispanic community, was being affected the most because even though we have the same behavior, we were in a different environment with a different temperature, with a different food quality. And all of those things were affecting us the most in all of the investigations I did. And besides that, we were the least researched population. So people didn't know how to adapt the medical interventions to our culture. And this is when I thought that I had to take some actions. I need to do something. I need to make a difference in the community.
Mhm. Oh, I love that. And it's so interesting to me how it was kind of through your personal experience with both the health system and the change in environment coming to this country that you noticed your health not doing so well and you wanted to really dig deeper and look at how do we address root causes and not just treat symptoms. And that's kind of where I'm coming from too. And so I'm just really glad that that's kind of the direction that you've gone in. And so I want to discuss several aspects of lifestyle and behavior change that you have learned along the way working with clients, working with patients, in your clinical experience. And why don't we start looking kind of at the area of exercise? So when we think about exercise and movement, what have you found to be principles or ideas around exercise, ways of exercising that can be super helpful to people that are dealing with things like metabolic syndrome, prediabetes, or type 2 diabetes?
Thank you for the questions. One of my favorite questions to ask. First of all, we need to understand that habits are the cornerstone of your health. What you do the most is what will going to affect you. So in America, there is a sedentary behavior environment. They call it obesogenic environment, in which the promotion of sedentary behavior is encouraged, either directly or indirectly. To combat this, we need to do the opposite. So we need to understand that diabetes and obesity are cumulative diseases. You need to do things wrong over a certain period of time to get the effect. But the good news is physical activity and exercise is also cumulative, meaning that if you can do 1 hour of exercise by doing 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the afternoon, 10 minutes at night for, let's say, 3 days a week, you can make a big impact in your health. You don't have to do too much at once. You don't have to do too much in intensity. You just have to do something. So usually for my patients who are diabetic, regardless of the type of diabetes they have, I always recommend postprandial walking, which literally means you eat and then you go for a walk. By doing that, you are forcing your body to absorb the nutrients and the sugar that you just ingested. In America, it's
Yeah.
usually the opposite. They just eat and sit, and they don't do nothing. And those things also accumulate, and then this is when you get the disease getting worse and worse and worse. And the other part is the psychological component. Most
Well,
people,
before we
especially,
go to psychological component, let's dig into this exercise bit just a little bit more.
sorry,
So, and that's okay. It's just that I want to really explore this a little bit so that people don't forget about it and they actually go away doing something. So, one of the things I heard you say was that it's really important for a diabetic, especially dealing with blood sugar issues of any kind, to start integrating extra movement in their daily routine. So, most Americans, our culture has us sitting way too much. In fact, I even hear people saying things like sitting is the new smoking. And so, what you're saying is not only do we need to move, but you're also suggesting a specific time of day when it's really effective, even if you're only moving a little bit. So, you mentioned we can start with as little as 10 minutes at a time, doing it 3 times a day. What's something else we do 3 times a day? Well, I think a lot of people are eating 3 times a day. So, doing your meal and then following with even 10 minutes of exercise is a great way to start integrating some more exercise into your routine. Now, tell me a little bit more about what does this exercise after meals, how does that work in your body? You mentioned that it helps your body to take up carbohydrates and sugars from your meal, but can you explain any more about how that works?
the physiology is pretty interesting. So we have this amazing organ called the pancreas, and the pancreas have two main hormones. One is insulin, which we know, but then the opposite is glucagon. Glucagon and insulin are like the opposite of each other. Insulin, its job is to reduce blood sugar. And it does it not only putting it inside of the cell, but it also saves the energy in form of sugar and convert it into fat. So people who are diabetic, every time they take an insulin shot, they are literally converting sugar into fat, which is not good. Because then you're gonna create other diseases like arteriosclerosis, hypertension, obesity, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
Glucagon does the opposite. Glucagon, what it does is when you have low sugar, it breaks down everything, the glycogen store, it breaks down some protein sometimes, it breaks down some fat, and it converts it into sugar. So basically, insulin is when sugar is high, and glucagon is when sugar is low. Now, when we are eating, we are intaking energy, not only carbohydrates, but also protein and fat. And everything that is too much is going to be saved as fat. So if you have too much protein, it will convert into fat. If you have too much fat, it will convert into fat too. And if you have too much sugar, it will convert into fat. To avoid this, we need to use the energy. So as soon as we eat, we go and move. By moving, the muscles, which are hungry, they're gonna take all of those nutrients, all of those carbs, all of those sugar from the blood and put it inside, so you don't need to use insulin anymore. Now, before we get crazy, I'm not saying to stop using your insulin. I'm not saying because everybody's different, of course. There's a lot of factors like how much food are you intaking, how much exercise we're doing, what is the intensity, etc. But what I'm saying that this is a good intervention that no doctor talks about it. If the endocrinologist, if the nurses, if everybody will think about movement as a form of medicine, they will realize that maybe we don't need that much insulin, that we don't need that much medication. The medication is still needed because the condition is critical. But when it becomes chronic, when it's something that you have to deal with on a daily basis, you have to implement more movement. Moving to the
Yes, and
weight training too.
I love that. And so what I'm hearing you say is when you do the exercise right after your meal, you can actually move blood sugar out of the bloodstream into your muscles where it's being burned for fuel immediately, and it doesn't even necessitate insulin. And that's really good news when you have a lot of insulin resistance and insulin isn't doing its job that well. Know that exercise is a great way to move that sugar out of the blood even without insulin doing all of its job because of the way the muscle uses energy. So, right there, you can start lowering blood sugars even before the other effects of movement and the other things you're going to be doing help you to improve your metabolism. So, I love that. So, I think that's like a number one takeaway from what we're talking about today is to get moving right after your meal, even if it's only 5 or 10 minutes. I think a good goal, what I often tell my clients, is to work up to about 30 minutes after a meal. Does that sound good to
That's
you?
exactly what I was saying.
Yeah. All
But we have to
righty.
begin somewhere. I'm okay with even 5 minutes. I'm okay
Yes,
with
yes,
that.
absolutely. But you'll probably get maximum effect at 30 minutes. And I've even seen some studies where they show that for every minute that you move right after a meal, and I mean right after a meal, you can often lower your blood sugar by 2 or 3 points for each minute of movement. So you do 30 minutes of movement, you can drop your blood sugar 60 points easily. I've seen people drop their blood sugars as much as 80 or 90 points with 20 to 30 minutes of walking. So that is a really significant drop, and that will actually affect your A1C numbers within a week. If you just did that every day after your meal for 1 week and you rechecked your A1C, you will see a drop in that number. So I love that. But okay, so that's one time and kind of exercise, like just walking after a meal.
Mhm.
We're not asking you to marathon train or do heavy exercise after a meal. So I want to be clear on that as well. But if we have that part of our routine, we're doing that, and maybe we want to add a little more exercise and movement to our body, what would be the second kind of exercise you would recommend?
Well, actually, this shouldn't be the first one. The most important exercise routine for a diabetic patient is weight training. People don't realize this.
Okay.
Even I didn't realize it when I began. Because weight training is the only training that affects sugar level permanently. Let me explain myself. We love cardio, okay? Cardio is an amazing form of exercise, just like walking. But cardio was not meant to control fat or sugar. Cardio is meant to make your heart and lungs more effective, stronger, bigger. So if I have a patient whose condition is asthma, of course I'm going to recommend cardio. If I have a person with a condition of heart diseases, of course I'm going to recommend cardio. But a diabetic doesn't have heart problems. Well, some people have. but,
Yeah, some do.
but we know that diabetes is a metabolic problem, and specifically a carbohydrate control problem. And what exercise control the sugar levels? It will be weight training. The pathophysiology of it is pretty interesting too. If you have bigger muscles, you consume more sugar in resting time, meaning that even when you are not doing exercise, you will still consuming sugar. Now, when you have low levels of muscle, then you cannot consume sugar, and then sugar accumulates in your bloodstream. This is when you need insulin. Okay, so if you really want to control permanently your blood sugar, you need to increase your muscles. Now, the question is, how do you do that? Okay. The big question that everybody asks me is, how do I get my muscles bigger? How do I do this in a safe way? You know what? I'm not that young. How can I do this? Weight training works the opposite of cardio. In order to achieve good goals with cardio, you need to do every single day, right? Weight training is the opposite. You need to do it a few days.
Mhm.
Because in weight training, you literally breaking muscle fibers. So you need to allow the body to recover. And in order to recover, you need to stop doing exercise. Most of the biggest bodybuilders that I have trained, they only train 2 times per week. Some only train 1 time per week. Most people think when they go to Planet Fitness and it's January and they have to do their goals, that they have to go to every single day to the gym and they have to use every single weight machine and every single dumbbell. That is not how it works. In order to increase muscle mass, you need to do high intensity, your intensity, okay? My intensity and your intensity will be different. Maybe I can lift 400 pounds. Maybe you can only lift 50. That's okay because you're not competing with anybody but yourself, okay? So you need to determine what is your one repetition maximums, like how much weight can you lift, and then you take a percentage of that. Let's just say in your legs, your limit is 100 pounds, okay? So maybe we're gonna begin with 50 pounds, which is half of that. And then we're just gonna do 10 repetitions. We're gonna do it 2 times, and then we're gonna move to another muscle group. Let's do some chest, let's do some arms. So by doing that 2 times per week, you eventually will achieve hypertrophy. When your muscles get bigger, your muscles will be taking your sugar even when you are not moving. Now we need to be careful because if you have episodes of hypoglycemia, which means your sugar goes down all the time, you need to have some sugar nearby all the time because we don't want you to have those problems. Even when after you finish your exercises, your weight training, you should be having some carbohydrate intake, just a little bit to balance it out. But when you do this repeatedly, let's just say for like 4 weeks, I think is the minimum, you will see a big difference in your blood sugar control, even without the use of insulin. Now, I'm not against insulin. I'm not saying to stop using it because I'm just giving you the tricks. But I'm telling you that eventually you have to limit your medication because your body will become so strong that it will look that you don't have diabetes. Doesn't mean you don't have it, but it will be like reversing the problem because now your body has more muscle and now you control more your blood sugar.
I think that's a really important aspect for people to understand is that as you build muscle, you're actually burning more sugar and more calories when you're sitting on the sofa between sessions than you would be with less muscle. So the more muscle you build, the better your metabolism is going to work. And that's how it can really help you to balance out blood sugars long term. And I think something else that you just mentioned, you want to make sure you're paying attention to, and that is as soon as you start implementing like after meal exercise or weight training or both, you want to be making sure you are checking your blood sugars regularly. Because as you increase the amount of movement in your day, you're going to need less medicine. So it's really important that you be followed by your healthcare provider, or at least you're checking and monitoring your own sugar really regularly so that you don't get yourself into a low blood sugar state. Now, if you're not taking medications for your blood sugar, that's probably not going to be a big risk. But if you are taking medications for blood sugar, like maybe you're on metformin or maybe you're taking insulin, both of those you'll probably need to change the dose or stop them entirely as soon as you start integrating more movement on a regular basis into your lifestyle. So that's a really important piece. I don't want any of you going out there and getting a low blood sugar episode because you're not checking and you're just taking your medicine as usual. But now you're building muscle. Now you're walking after your meals and you don't need as much medicine. And so it can overshoot the whole blood sugar dropping mechanism that you're using the medicine for. So do be aware of that. I want y'all to stay safe, but exercise is an amazing way to really make an impact on your metabolism. And I think just following up on that, say right now you're not walking after meals, or say you're not doing strength training. Obviously, building some habits around movement are going to be helpful. So let's take a few minutes here to talk about how habits can help us in achieving our long-term health goals. What do you tell people about the importance or strategies for building habits and changing behavior?
That's a great question. That's a psychological component, the behavioral component. So, if we begin to exercise, we need to understand that if our body feels that the intensity is too high, our brain, as a way of protection, will make us quit that habit. Okay? That's why I tell my patients don't overdo it, Do it on your own time, do it on your own intensity. I even readjust every 2 weeks the intensity
Hmm.
of the exercise to make sure that the person is enjoying the exercise. But even outside of the exercise realm, there are some habits that we have that are bad. And we need to fix those habits by changing them or replacing them for healthier habits. Let me give you an
Hmm.
example. And of course, I'm going to give the physiology of it. I did notice that most of my patients, they tend to eat when you're watching TV, or they tend to eat when they're in the phone. Okay, so this is the thing. There are two important hormones that dictate whether you feel hungry or whether you feel satiety. One of them is gremlin. Gremlin is a hormone that indicates to your body that you need energy, so you become hungry. And then you have leptin. It's one of the three hormones of satiety. It's the most powerful one. That one indicates that you already ate enough. What people don't realize is your eyes are directly connected to your brain. So if you're eating, but you're looking at something else, your brain will never register how much food are you eating. So you can finish the whole plate and don't even feel that you're full. Because your brain is like, well, I'm just watching TikTok. I'm not really realizing how much energy I'm having. Maybe I need more, maybe I need less. And you can do tests on this. If you have a way to test your ghrelin and leptin hormones, if you begin eating and you're watching TV, your ghrelin hormone will go up and you will keep feeling hungry. But if you pay
That's
attention to
interesting.
what you're doing, you will see that there's a lot of food and you already will get fuller faster. That's a trick that some people use in behavioral change.
Hmm.
Okay, how can we change that habit? How can we use it for good? Well, I tell to my patients when they say, well, I don't have time to exercise. Okay, do me a favor. When you take a phone call, go for a walk. By them talking to somebody, they don't realize how many steps they're doing. I have patients that have told me, oh my God, I walked like for 45 minutes and I didn't even feel tired because your brain already registered that you were moving. So, in other
Yeah.
people, I tell them to do cardio theater, in which they put a treadmill, and they begin to walk as they're watching the TV. And they watch a whole 2 hours movie walking, or sometimes even jogging, and they get all of the steps, they get all of their health. So those are habits that you can build, and you won't even realize it that you're making a big change in your life. The last one that I always recommend for people who have to travel to work, I always told them park in the farthest way possible. So you have to be forced to walk in and out because those steps can make a big difference in your health. So those
Hmm.
habits are simple habits, but powerful habits that I even use as prescriptions for some people who have these mental barriers of I don't have the time, I don't have the energy, I don't have the motivation. Well, you can always integrate things that can make you move more and make you less sedentary.
Mm. Those are great tips, Leon. I really love that. So let me back up and do a little recap. Um, Paying attention to what you eat affects your satiety hormone levels. So you have ghrelin that makes you feel hungry, leptin that makes you feel like you've had enough to eat. And that if you start eating distractedly, like you're watching something else, you're not looking at your food, you're not thinking about what you're eating, your hunger hormone goes up and makes you feel hungrier, even though you're eating.
Exactly.
And so you are more likely to overeat. Whereas
Exactly.
if you pay attention to what you're eating, then the ghrelin starts to drop and your leptin starts to go up so that you're going to feel satisfied and feel like, okay, I've had enough to eat sooner by paying attention to your food. And so I
Exactly.
really love that tip because I think a lot of times distracted eating has become part of our culture. I mean, ever since the introduction of something called the TV dinner, um, people have started trying to multitask when they eat and doing something besides enjoying their meal during their meal. And I really do believe that we were designed to enjoy our food and our meals. And so take that time to do it, and you'll actually be working with your body instead of against your body. And then you were talking about consistency in habits, like creating these habits by doing things over and over, makes them easy, makes them more automatic. So everyone that's listening, I know, knows at least two things they could do differently that would help their health. But a lot of times the gap is actually executing on that, like actually doing it. So if someone, for example, says, well, I know I need to move more, what would be some tips that you would give them to actually turn that knowledge, moving more would help me, into a habit that becomes like part of their everyday routine?
There are so many strategies and tools that we can use to achieve that. I became recently certified in health coaching, and I learned so many powerful things that I think that everybody should do. Health coaching was based upon motivational interview and cognitive behavioral therapy. Those were techniques developed to make people quit some addictions. So these are powerful tools. One of them is social support. If you feel like you need some accountability or you need somebody to be with you, grab a family member, grab somebody, motivate them to motivate you. So you have a reminder of what you have to do. It could be just go for a walk after every meal, like we were discussing. Have your husband, wife, your brother, your daughter, your son to go for a walk with you. Maybe it
Mm-hmm.
is to go to the gym. For many people, the gym is intimidating. And that's understandable. There's too many machines, there's too many things to do. People don't know what they're going to do. People are afraid of harming themselves. Maybe you need somebody who have a little bit more of experience and do some simple exercise with them. It could be just the Stairmaster. Okay, just go with your friend, put him at your side, and just do the Stairmaster with them. It could be the bicycle. It could be a kettlebell. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have to be nothing complicated. Besides social support, the other one is a reward system. Even though I want
Mm-hmm.
everybody to have internal motivation, we do know that sometimes external motivation is what you need to initiate a behavioral change. So, how can we change our perception of the rewards to become a positive way? Maybe you like sweet things, but you're not allowed to eat chocolate. Okay, that's cool. Maybe we can find a recipe of something that's chocolate and is sweet and is healthy. And you will allow yourself to cook that if you achieve certain amount of steps. So you're rewarding yourself for your behavior and still keeping it healthy. And the last one is self efficacy. When you're working with a health professional or an exercise professional or even a dietitian, which is a nutrition expert, try to ask them to figure out how can you be in the development of your plan? How can you
Mm-hmm.
participate? Ask them for options. So when you feel like you're creating your own plan, you take ownership of your own health, and then you're gonna be more likely to do it. You're gonna be more efficient in doing it. So even though those tricks looks like, oh, I already knew it, those are really simple, those are really powerful tools.
Mm-hmm.
And I use it on a daily basis. Because let me tell you, most of my patients, they don't want to change. They already have these built habits for 25 years, and it's really hard to talk to them. But I always go and meet them where they're at and ask them, what do you want to achieve here? Oh, I want to live healthier. I want to move more. I want to feel better. Okay, I can help you to do that. But I need you to help me to help you. These are your options. We can walk, we can do the bicycle, or we can swim. Which one do you want? I can tell
Yeah.
them which one is the best for them, but I want them to tell me so they can build the habit because those are the ones. If they're worried about motivation, what happens if I'm not motivated enough? Oh, maybe we can have a discussion of doing something in the family. Maybe we can go out to the park. Maybe we can go to the zoo. That counts as exercise. They're like, really? I thought I gotta go to the gym. But you don't have to go to the gym. There's so many
Right.
things you can do. Maybe you want to do archery. People don't know this, but archery is also a physical exercise. Maybe they want to do chess. Many of the mental exercises that we do consume sugar in our brain. So I sometimes recommend mental exercises to build habits in which their brain and their body can be aligned and they can use glucose in a more efficient way. Maybe you need to do some breathing exercise, maybe some motivation, meditation. Maybe your stress is too high, and by regulating your stress, we can regulate your glucose response. There's so many things that people can try. It's not only one thing. There's so many options, and everybody's different, and everybody will react different, of course.
I love that, Leon. You've just given us a whole handful of gold in terms of tips that are really practical and that you can take away today and implement starting right away. And I just really appreciate you sharing all of that with us. And I know some of you that have been listening, you're like, well, I would like to know what are some of the other resources that I can get by connecting with Leon? What are other things I can learn from him? And we're going to drop a link. It's going to be in the description right below this video, where you will go to a website and he has a list of different services that are available. When you click on those, you can choose what's the area that you're most interested in working on. And then from there, it will lead you into answering questions or whatever it is you need to do to connect with Leon and get support with that. So I think that'll be really helpful for you. And so do go take advantage of that. If what you've heard today sounds interesting and you want to get some more support in implementing it, I really agree with Lee on that. Whatever we can do to find a health buddy, find a coach, find somebody that can help us provide support and accountability in our journey to better health, we're more likely to be successful. And so I just want to say thank you for being here with us today. And remember that health is wealth and it comes by choice, not by chance. So I'm so glad you took the time to be with us here today.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to share my knowledge.
Oh, well, we're so glad you were able to do that. And we're so willing to share generously with us today, Leon. So have a great day, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.